Maybe you can get your question.
Okay.
Traveling all around Florida. Oh, she's going city to city?
We went certain places that you want to check out.
Beach to beach?
Beach. But you know what? Every time she goes, something happens. So now it's red tide, and because of all that happened with spring break and everything else.
Oh, right.
Oh, what happened with
She was
spring
in
break?
Miami.
Spring break, and like that.
In Miami.
Well, the kids
They
are nuts sometimes.
Well, they shut
Right,
it
and
down.
so
They
they-
shut it down.
Miami.
Emergency, yeah.
They stopped serving
They
alcohol
stopped
at
serving
6.
everything, yeah.
And everything shuts down at midnight.
Mhm.
And so they've got to get out, they gotta go somewhere
Yep.
else. So,
I can
and
tell
really,
you,
like, if you're
Jackie
getting,
hasn't seen
if you're
midnight
getting
in a
it
long
that
time. Nor have I.
No, but it's, and the red tide in the water, there's.
What's the red? What's the?
It's just,
Like
you
a
can't go swimming.
algae.
It's all algae.
Balloon.
Yeah, yeah, it's moving, it's bad.
and then Omega, we've got like blue algae.
Mm.
It's not swimming in the lake.
So Megan has a lake?
Mhm.
Oh.
I mean, it's fine. It's a lake, it's beautiful to look at, but it's
But you're not gonna go in
It's
it.
okay.
Yeah, I'm gonna go in it.
So-
Right, not that I would go, if I can see the bottom, that's my general rule, if I can see the bottom.
Yeah,
I don't get in it.
Yeah, there you
Yeah.
go. Yeah.
Yeah, you can pull your chair right up and sit right at the table and make it move.
I feel like I'm talking to this pipe.
Did it
Make
answer,
a new friend there,
did it
right?
answer back?
Well, let's see. I dressed up for it.
It did.
If you strike up a friendship with the pipe, you can have them when we pull them out.
Yeah, because when the addition's finished, all the file cabinets are coming down from upstairs.
Oh,
So-
and this
so is the pole actually coming out there?
Yeah.
Do we have to do anything to strengthen it, or
No.
we just don't need it?
No.
dangerous is that right there? You always want-
Not very dangerous. We
Well,
maintenance, we check it and we check all the sealing periodically, but we pulled everything that was loose down, so. That's why the addition needed to, this was built in 1913, 1912, something like that. It was a 4-bedroom house upstairs, and the bedroom consisted of a bed, maybe a chair, a little nightstand, or yeah,
Not
and
hundreds and hundreds of pounds of files.
yeah. Amazing, it's really held up as well as it has, to be honest with you. But anyway, it's become a ritual now. I just reminds people that periodically you'll see me checking my phone. I'm not being rude, but communicating with Melanie, who's running the meeting for us. So it's instead of interrupting and talking with her, we text back and forth. So I know a lot of people these days, they're on their phone constantly. And
So who sent us the minutes though? Because I was just looking, I thought Melanie sent them.
she sent them out to us, yeah.
So do you know when perhaps?
Accompanying documents, she said
Yeah.
What date
today,
today?
139 is the agenda is.
Oh, it's
final
coming
agenda.
documents.
It's a
The
Zoom
minute,
link.
oh, TV
and
minutes, I
accompanying.
did like that.
So I'll start briefly with topic archtop infrastructure. So I sent all of you a request from Archtop. Actually, it wasn't directly from Archtop, it's from a company they hired to help facilitate the installation. Woodstock apparently is the ideal location, and actually Rock City Road by the community center is the ideal location for a hub. And so when we initially, this was raised, I said, oh, so you might be interested in renting some property, and they kind of nodded. This company has now come back, and I guess they don't expect to rent it. They were wondering if we would just give them an easement to put up a building, which the dimensions change a little bit, but I think they're looking for something. The building itself would roughly be 10, 12 by 10 or 12 feet by 20 with a little fenced in area. And they would, since there's parking there, they wouldn't need additional space for the parking. My reading of the New York State Constitution says that we can't gift things to anyone. And to grant them something without compensation to the public, as I read the Constitution, is not legal. I will say that the county just the other day did some easement with them. I don't know the terms yet. I have contacted the exec's office to get that information. And it's possible, you know, when I read the Constitution, it's under town law, city law, and state law and county law do vary a little bit, where they can do things we can't. So I don't know what that where we are with that. So that's as much as I know for now. Is anybody willing to entertain the possibility of leasing property to them if that were the case?
Well, leasing would sound okay. Well, what do we do with the other town? We have other towers, right?
So we have the tower, the town owns the tower at California Quarry, and we rent space there. You know, and the providers pay us every month nicely. I mean, we're up to about $75,000. I think it's $75,000 a year for the 3 contracts.
Yeah, I think renting or leasing, that would be okay. I mean, we would approve them coming in, giving it a go. I would think renting or leasing would be consistent with.
And I think a small building, there's a couple of spots over there along the fence with the cemetery, or perhaps in the triangle grass area between the communities, the center parking lot and the youth center might, right against the road there, might fit something. So Reggie, any strong
And
feelings?
so what in the building is just gonna be like a hub of their equipment?
It's going to be a hub to, you know, they bring all the wires together and then send them out, I guess. Information out.
So it'd be a separate building. It would be on the current tower. They would build a separate building.
Correct, and it would be by the community center, not up.
It's
on
not a
the-
tower.
When you say tower, yeah.
It's
Oh,
not. a
I'm
tower.
sorry. So the building that they
I
want.
was, well, you mentioned the tower,
Yeah, the
that's,
tower. Okay, so
there's no tower.
So what they want is a building on Rock City Road.
Right at the community center is the absolute ideal
Somewhere on that.
location.
And when you say at the community center, you mean it could be near the youth center, or
Yes,
it could be
yeah.
by the community center, it could be by those generators.
Yes, they have,
There hasn't really been an ideal spot that have they asked?
in conversations, I think that the closer to the phone lines and the power lines, the better. So when we had a brief conversation, either over by the fence line between the cemetery and the parking lot, the community parking lot, there's a strip that we could put say a 10 by 20 building. Also, if you look over at the community center, there's that little, it's almost like a triangle piece of grass, and there's hedges right in front of it. So I think pressed up right against the hedges might be another location that's right under the lines. So
So I'm sorry, I was logging on while you did that. So the hedges are near close to the road, you say?
the hedges are right on the road.
Okay. So the only question that I would have, and we worry a lot about radiation in town, is whatever they're gonna put there, is it gonna emit radiation that might bother people either in the parking lot or the kids who are there for summer camp, or even close enough to the building,
Or the youth center also.
or the youth center also. So
I don't believe so. There was some discussion about that, I thought, when they came here. That it's, you know, there's not a lot of high voltage or energy, but I will ask that question.
yeah, because definitely we want to make sure there's a safety issue.
I guess the only other thing that comes to mind would be will there be a building that is built, or will it
Yes.
just be? So
Yeah,
they'll,
what were the dimensions again that you said? The house?
It's changed, it's moved around, but I somewhere around 10 or 12 feet wide by 20 feet long is the number that I've heard most often. Any radiation, health.
That's a pretty big building though, for kind of right on the road. It's kind of, it's like in our way almost.
It might be,
10
listen,
10 by 20 is this room like 20 wide and 10 might be to from the wall of the fireplace kind of?
well, I would say from that wall to here and the length of the room.
Oh,
The room is
wow.
probably a little longer than 20 feet.
Yeah,
I
Yeah.
would-
Where you're possibly in a head space.
oh, that's a good point.
Undergrounds?
Yeah, to them, they're doing the study coming up, you know,
Yep,
but what they want to do is look at that exact area as the hub, all the equipment, so it's a good idea.
okay.
So.
The price just went up.
So what kind of,
We don't know yet.
so is it,
It's-
do we know, is this above ground or below ground?
it's above.
Well, they're gonna need equipment above ground. The geothermal piping or whatever, we're expecting to be below ground. It could be below parking lots, but they'll need something above ground.
Right, and
equipment.
that's where they thought that it might be an ideal spot, so we're just throwing it out there.
Okay. You know, another thing that I threw out there last summer, and I want to get back on that because we're progressing with this. Historically, every time we started a construction project, we started talking about the next construction project. And the next one that I think we should be tackling is the youth center. We talked about creating a capital for that.
We talked about that a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
But we're getting close now, because now it's the next thing.
And I've always been a pretty big proponent of renovating, you know, being green and saving and repurposing. I think in this particular instance, though, and I'm going to suggest we put a committee together to look at both ends of it. That's a tough building to use as a youth center, and it needs a lot of work.
I know, it's a nightmare.
And I think in this particular case, I think a tear down is more warranted. And then a good solid single floor space. And for a youth center, I think, you know, really ideally you want one big space with maybe a couple little side rooms and an office. So I think we would be better off rebuilding. Now, when we do that, it might be that if we want to house some of this equipment, we could do both. So.
Right, because that will be on it as well.
Yeah, and you know, it's wide open to what we do there because, you know, yeah, there's a driveway there, but we can move driveways and, you know, so except for the skate park, which I don't think we want to move, there's a lot of possibilities there. Anyway, with that, I'm going to call up Ellie. Georgia, you gonna come up as well? For our pollinator presentation.
What's this thing?
Oh, that's Felicia's, that's a recorder. So, the radio station, that's for the radio station recording.
Was the chair of the West going to introduce these guys?
That's what I was told, but
Hi, guys.
Oh,
Hi.
Hi.
Hey there.
I hope you can hear me. Sorry, I can't be there in person, but I just wanted to quickly introduce Georgia and Ellie in the context of the WEC, which is that so the town of Woodstock has, through the Environmental Commission, been partnering with the Woodstock Pollinator Pathway for, I believe this is the 4th year. And essentially, with other partners, including the Land Conservancy, we support them in a lot of their work. We help promote their activities. And so what this presentation is going to be is just a next step in that process, that the town can be a bit more involved in the work that the Pollinator Pathway is doing by actually signing on to the Pollinator Pathway. Georgia and Ellie are both members of both the Pollinator Pathway and the Woodstock Land Conservancy. So they come with a lot of expertise that they're going to share with you. And I hope everyone on the town board was able to receive the copy of the resolution that I sent you both earlier today.
actually, I have a resolution, thank you. So with that, Ellie, if you want to take over.
Well,
Or Georgia, you want to
Georgia,
start?
I'm
Okay. Okay, Georgia, thank you.
yeah, so let me screen
So,
share.
So you can.
Well, I'm
she's
just
gonna
No, Alex is finished.
share the screen and we're gonna see things up here. Oh, great, okay. Okay, so, first of all, I couldn't hear Alex very well, so if I repeat what she says, forgive me. Thanks for inviting us to
You're welcome.
talk
Thank
to
you
you
for
about the
being here.
resolution declaring Woodstock a pollinator-friendly municipality. I'm Georgia Asher, and this is Ellie Reese, and we're both from the Woodstock Pollinator Pathway. So we put this resolution together with the help of the Woodstock Environmental Commission. And we hope that you'll be able to vote on it, I guess, either next week or I don't know when you're going to vote on it. But anyway, we hope you're able to look it over carefully. And in preparation for this, we wanted to give you some background information on why this resolution is so important. So first of all, we have this slide. This just shows the logo of the Woodstock Pollinator Pathway, and then of course a pollinator garden. So next slide, Ellie. What is the Woodstock Pollinator Pathway? Some of you might not know. So we started this pollinator pathway in 2020 in response to the drop that we and the number of pollinators in this area right here in Woodstock. This is something of really major concern. The goal of the pollinator pathway is to increase the number of pollinators. We do this by increasing the amount of good pollinator habitat. The Woodstock Pollinator Pathway is a collaboration of 4 organizations: Woodstock Land Conservancy, Woodstock New York Transition, the Catskill Center, and Woodstock Environmental Commission. And these are all local organizations, and we're part of another organization, an umbrella organization called Pollinator Pathways of the Northeast, which includes pollinator pathways in Massachusetts, Connecticut, Vermont, Maine, all these northeastern states. So it's a big organization. So when we started it here, and all along we have been greeted with a great deal of enthusiasm by the people of Woodstock. And to date, more than 200 households have pledged to create pollinator habitat in their yards and to join the pollinator pathway. So I want you to find an important term here, habitat, which I've been using. Okay, this is a place that provides an animal species with everything it needs to survive and successfully reproduce, such as food, shelter, mates, etc. And then, thank you, Ellie. Next point is, what are pollinators in the first place? Now, most people don't really totally understand this. So it's an insect or other animal that aids flowering plants in fertilization through movement of pollen from one flower to another. Some examples include native bees, of which there are more than 400 different species just in New York State. So a lot of native bees, honeybees, which are non-native, butterflies, moths, hummingbirds, and bats. So I want to make it clear, we're not talking here about honeybees. They're a minor part of this picture, although their population has also been collapsing, as you probably know. Specific examples of pollinators are the ruby-throated hummingbird, the Baltimore checker-spot butterfly, which is a rare native butterfly, and then the rusty-patched bumblebee, a native bee which was once common and is now endangered. And this is happening with a lot of the native bees, which we're very concerned about. So why all the fuss about pollinators? Why are they important? Well, pollination is an essential ecological survival function. The human race and all living things depend on the existence of pollinators. We can't live without pollinators. Okay. So 3/4 of flowering plants depend on pollinators. And flowering plants make up 90% of the plants in the world. And this includes not just the flowers in your garden and the wildflowers and so forth. It includes trees, bushes, grasses. Many of the world's food crops, including almost all fruit and grain crops, depend on pollinators to reproduce. Pollinators and flowering plants have co-evolved for millions of years. They've evolved together. They rely on each other for survival. So you can't have one without the other. You can't take away the pollinators and still have flowering plants. So without them, you lose most of the plants on Earth without pollinators. It's a major, major thing. Flowering plants also aid in carbon sequestration and soil health. And pollinators, like native bees, are keystone species, meaning that they anchor an interconnected food web. Without them, whole ecosystems could collapse. So you take away these pollinators, and then all kinds of other living things start to disappear. And that's a disaster for everybody. So this is an example of an interconnected food web. At the bottom, you see there are native plants, and then above that, there are birds. The birds depend on the native plants, and then the insects depend on the native plants, and the native plants depend on the insects, and then the birds depend on the insects, and they're connected to everything, in other words, and we're in there too. We depend on all these things too. So it's all interconnected. So threats to pollinator populations. Human activity has threatened pollinator populations. Habitat loss, pesticide use, and the changing climate are the major factors that are causing pollinator decline. And then we also know more recently there's been more talk about lights at night, which cause insects to, come to the light and they exhaust themselves and they don't reproduce. Okay, this pollinator decline is happening worldwide, but we know it's happening right here in New York State, because just recently they released this big scientific study where they studied over 470 different pollinator species. And it was a very carefully done scientific study, and it proves a real pollinator decline. It found that at least 38% and as many as 60% of the pollinators studied are at risk in New York State. So think of that. Those are really huge numbers, 38% to 60%. If you have this going on for a few more decades, you end up with no pollinators, and you end up with what? Ecosystem collapse. So it's really a major concern. We're not just talking about putting in pretty gardens. Right. So what's the solution? Well, lawns are a big problem. If people have big lawns, they don't support this food web in any way. Those are ecological dead zones. So I know you need some lawn, to throw the Frisbee around or walk and so forth, but you can reduce the lawn. And as an alternative, grow a wildflower meadow, and then you can mow paths through it so you have a good place to walk. Encourage native plants, such as the plants that you see around here anyway, such as asters, goldenrods, native oak trees, native cherry trees, wild strawberries. This is just a few. There's a really long list, and many will come up on their own. Don't rake or leaf blow, because the leaves are where the insects spend the winter in the form of larvae and eggs. Avoid pesticides and herbicides and other chemicals, particularly neonicotinoids. Manage invasive plants, which outcompete the native plants. So I mentioned native plants as opposed to, if you go to the nursery, most of the plants you're going to see come from Asia or Europe, and those plants don't really support the pollinators. They didn't evolve with the pollinators we have here, so they can't really get what they need to survive from those plants, although they're very, very pretty. So you need to choose native plants instead. And those are here. If you just don't pull them out or mow so much, they'll probably just come up on their own. So last picture here. This is an example of a pollinator meadow with mown paths through it. It's very pretty. And the one on the right is right here in Woodstock. That's Thorn Preserve. And you can see all of the beautiful plants there, and then a lot of more paths. You can go there and walk. It's really nice, and you'll see it buzzing with bees and all kinds of other insects, important beneficial insects and birds. They're there. Okay,
Thank you.
Ellie, take
Sure.
over. Okay.
Thank you so
Thanks.
much, Georgia. I'm Ellie Reese. I am the Program and Outreach Coordinator for the Woodstock Land Conservancy, and I also serve as WLC's liaison to the Pollinator Pathway. So why we're here today, what does the Pollinator Pathway do within Woodstock? We're part of a grassroots movement, as Georgia said, that we're focused on establishing closely connected pollinator-friendly habitats with the goal of increasing biodiversity. We encourage individual property owners, organizations, businesses, and municipalities to commit to using pollinator-friendly landscaping practices. We encourage all who adopt these practices to join the pathway by being mapped. We provide educational programs, workshops, events, and resources to assist in this goal. All of our work is done under the guidance of ecological landscape experts. As Georgia also mentioned, we are part of a larger umbrella organization, Pollinator Pathways of the Northeast. We are, as a chapter of the Pollinator Pathways of the Northeast, we encourage individuals, businesses, and organizations, as well as municipalities, to follow the guidelines that they provide. Joining the pathway by being mapped requires a commitment to adopting the landscaping practices outlined by the Pollinator Pathways of the Northeast. I've provided their website. They provide an enormous amount of resources for anyone, individuals, organizations, and municipalities. Anyone who needs the information is there. So what have we accomplished in our 3 years in existence? We've mapped over 200 pollinator-friendly properties, which includes local homes, businesses, and organizations. Those lists are growing. We have worked with Ulster County and New York City DEP and mapping the Ashokan Rail Trail onto the pathway. We have worked in collaboration with organizations like the Woodstock Farm Festival, Woodstock Library, and the Woodstock Jewish Congregation, just to name a few. We've advised several area communities in their efforts to become more pollinator friendly. And we've offered successful workshops and events with local experts and nationally known figures, including Doug Talamy, who is our entomologist pollinator guru. So the resolution, why we're here today, what we're in support of. We just wanted to give you a little bit of an outline of what you would be at the town of Woodstock committing to if you adopted this resolution. So you would be committing to adopting the strategies of integrated pest management into municipal operations. And I'm going to define integrated pest management just because I want to make sure that everybody knows what that is. Integrated pest management is an ecosystem-based strategy that focuses on long-term prevention of pests or their damage through a combination of techniques such as biological control, habitat manipulation, modification of cultural practices, and use of resistant varieties. Pesticides are used only after monitoring indicates they are needed according to established guidelines, and treatments are made with the goal of removing only the target organism. Pest control materials are selected and applied in a manner that minimizes risks to human health, beneficial and non-target organisms, and the environment. You would be committing to mow less frequently, including roadside mowing where appropriate, leave fall leaves for overwintering insects wherever possible. Where possible, reduce the size of large lawns on town properties in favor of wildflower meadows. This can be either planted or occurring naturally. Avoid the use of chemical pesticides and lawn and garden chemicals, and phase out the use of neonicotinoid pesticides completely. We understand you already do this, so kudos to you. When landscaping for new projects is needed, have a goal of at least 75% of the plants chosen to include native pollinator-friendly plants. Consult with an ecological landscape expert to advise on plant choice and siting to assure the success of any planting project. Where possible, manage invasive species that decrease pollinator habitat and soil quality, and add all town properties to the pathway as they become eligible according to the Pollinator Pathways guidelines. So I know that this is a huge commitment to ask the town to take, but there are some benefits that you will receive from passing a resolution like this. You will have benefits such as improved pollinator health, increase in pollinator populations, increased biodiversity, improved soil health, improved health of our ecosystem, improved health of Woodstock residents, less chemicals, less illnesses, Costs and resource savings to the town, and this would occur in the reduction of mowing, so it would also reduce harmful greenhouse gas emissions in the process as well. You would get community support and partnership. We have had great support for this project, and I'm sure the community would support your wanting to pass this resolution as well. You would have the support and guidance from an established group of field experts, and you would continue to be regional leaders in protecting our natural resources. So we want to thank you once again for allowing us this opportunity to present to you and propose a resolution, and we hope that we can make Woodstock a much more pollinator-friendly municipality with your help.
Thank you.
Thank you for your presentation. I fully support this. Several years ago, I actually, we stopped mowing the middle lawn here, and I did catch a lot of flack for it, and ultimately we went back to mowing it. So I hope that when we stop mowing it this time, we will get a lot of support in doing so. Also, the town uses no pesticides, fertilizers, no chemicals at all. We don't have any. So we're already clear. With that, thank you very much, guys.
Thank you.
And I know there are a couple of different resolutions going about, so I'm going to leave it for the town board over the next week or so to hammer things out. In our next meeting, we'll offer a resolution.
Excellent.
Thank
And
you.
if I just want to say, so I've been to your website is excellent because it has all the list of all the pollinator friendly plants, trees, whatever. So I think your website is fabulous. So it's very, very helpful and it's a good resource for people who want to find out more.
Thank you so much, Laura.
Yeah. One thing I'd like to mention also, one thing that is really important in this resolution is that the consultation with an ecological landscaper, because it's different using native plants from, just doing your typical gardening. It's quite different. You need to consult with somebody, and it's not expensive. They charge what, $75 an hour.
Yeah, their
Or something,
average
so-
hourly consultation.
So it's,
is
like a few $100s a year probably.
If it's possible, I'd like to learn more about that.
Oh,
About
absolutely.
Yeah.
the ecological
Yeah,
landscape.
ecological landscapes. That would be terrific. If you could send me
Can we send you
information about that.
information? Sure.
Yeah,
We have-
absolutely.
We have a list of references of local ecological landscape designers who would be more than happy to consult both for municipal projects and for individual homeowners.
Thank you very much. I
Yeah, and
appreciate
we
that.
have, as you mentioned, a lot of information on our website, and then the Pollinator Pathway to the Northeast has a lot of information, so that's very helpful too. And Bill, we can, about that, making that into a meadow, the big lawn, signage and things like that, which we can suggest, to explain to people what's going on, and that would go a long way.
The other thing that I had asked the WEC to do some time ago, and I haven't heard back yet, is get back to me with a recommendation. And this is going to be a tougher one. It's going to take a little bit more study and time and thought, but with seating over at the cemetery.
I have something for you.
Okay, so send it to.
I
send
do.
it.
I have an entire guide that will give you many choices of native low growth ground cover.
Fantastic.
Yeah, I will email that to
And
you.
speaking of sending things, will you be sending your presentation to the supervisor?
Yeah, absolutely.
Actually, yes, and then I'll forward it to the town clerk. I know she
Absolutely.
likes doing
And I
that.
have many other resources. If there's anything else you would like to see, I have a kind of package of like the best bits from the resource lists from Pollinator Pathways of the Northeast that I'd be more than happy to share.
Excellent.
I have a quick
There's
question. Go ahead, George.
Okay, there's an ecological landscaper who's part of our planning group named Lauren Hinfey,
Mhm.
who might contact you about, she could just tell you probably what
Yeah,
some-
she's gonna
about
contact
some of these
Right,
ground covers for the cemetery.
right. There is a
Yeah.
little plant ground cover. I want to call it sage, but it's not sage, but it's reddish, almost like your sweater. And it seemed to have a little flower. And that would be ideal too, I think. The bees seem to love it, but I have not been able to locate exactly what it is or.
Huh?
And that, somebody who knows more about plants should take a look at it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it actually, it's a nice reddish rust like color. And it seems to do well. It doesn't grow fast, so it doesn't need to be mowed.
Yeah, well, that sounds like a great idea, to
Right.
have something like that.
Okay. Thank you again, guys.
Okay,
Oh, I'm sorry, Reggie. No. Please.
Just quickly, you were talking about consulting with a landscaper with ecological,
Yes.
maybe one word there, about native plants. Is that information, I mean, do people have to pay someone, or is there access to that information? Like of just town residents, do they have to consult and have someone say like, oh, you should do this, or can they get that information? Is there access to that information to the public?
It's on your
without
website,
doing-
Yeah.
but what's the
Yeah.
difference between looking at the website and saying, hey, all these things are pollinators, and your ecological landscaper will do what in addition to what you can do with your own research?
So what they will do is they'll come and look at your site specifically. They'll also test your soil if that's something that you would like. So you know exactly if you have acidic or alkaline soil. They'll be able to tell if there's a lot of clay, how the water, what the drainage is like, whether it's a super wet location. You know, there's lots
So
of
they'll pick a
variables.
plant.
But I guess
Yeah.
for people that don't have like a lot of money to do
Yeah.
all of that, if I just wanted to plant. look at
Reggie, can
the
I,
native-
can I?
I'm sorry.
Hi, sorry.
Hi.
I just want to make it really clear to you guys that there is a little bit of a distinction between the pollinator pathway as it pertains to individual residences
Mhm.
and as it pertains to municipalities. So a lot of the things like an ecological landscaper are not.
Oh, sure, just to say that, I do understand this will be different. I was just curious about access for public, people that may hear it.
So it's not something you at home would have to spend money to do. If you're just, you know, Reggie who has an apartment in Woodstock, but
Just
for-
Reggie. Yeah.
it's a little bit different. So there are some.
No, I
distinctions.
totally get there's
Yeah.
a distinction between the pollinator pathway. Again, I was just referencing, would you talk about native plants and consulting with someone? I was curious, I understand consulting someone about the pathway and certain plants for that. And again, my question was really just for folks that may hear this and go, oh, I'm interested. Is there some way, again, not for necessarily the pollinator pathway, but native plants? And
Oh,
things like
yes.
that, you know, so yeah.
So for an
They have
individual
some good
homeowner,
workshops too.
Hold on, Alex. Go ahead, Ellie.
so for an individual homeowner who's planting a relatively small planting, you know, you can absolutely consult the plant list. A lot of them will tell you what type of soil conditions and sun conditions you need for successful plantings. But when you're talking about a large scale installation that is going to have, you know, maintenance done over time, and you are trying to reduce the cost of that maintenance over time, it's best to consult with an expert who can basically tell you exactly what to plant to make sure that your planting is successful and establishes itself, because once native plantings are established, they require almost no maintenance in the long term. So that's also like when you're thinking about expenditures, you want to think about the long-term expenditures that you are going to have, especially when you're talking about municipal operations. I mean, you don't usually think about short-term things. So for municipal operations, like it would be important to make sure that you have that consultation so that you have a long-term successful planting that requires much less maintenance in the long term.
Yeah,
But
and-
individually, you can consult plant lists, so you know, if it's
Yeah,
a
and
small
Reggie,
planting.
You can look at our website, and we have videos also by several
Yes.
ecological landscapers that are really good videos that kind of
So
explain.
that's good for the public. that's listening.
Yes. We
Yeah,
have
and it's
tons
also,
of resources on our
yeah.
website.
Ladies, thank you very
Thank you so
much.
much.
Okay.
With that, I'm going to move on to quick conversation with the board. Did anyone have any questions for Laura? She had sent a draft of the local law to amend scenic overlay regulations. And I know Connor Wink, who helped with this, is in the audience. Did anybody have any concerns, issues, questions before I make a resolution to forward this on to the planning board?
Well, and I would like to take a moment and thank Connor. Connor's in the back of the room for those that haven't, yay, Connor. So Connor and Ed Sanders, we can thank Connor especially because we haven't been on the planning board. Connor knew this was needed. And because there were so many cases in the scenic overlay, Connor and Ed collaborated. They brought the scenic overlay law to the zoning revision committee. We reviewed it carefully. We shared it with the WEC. The WEC was very interested in seeing an early copy. The WEC was wonderful. They had super quick turnaround. And so we didn't miss a beat in terms of WEC saw it, gave the feedback, came to a meeting. We incorporated quite a bit of what the WEC said. So it's seen, and Connor and Ed started out by talking with the planning board before they had the first draft. So it's had a lot of pairs of eyes involved in looking at it. But yeah, it'd be wonderful to move it through the process at a speed that we don't lose the whole next summer season of losing all the trees in the scenic overlay. It would be great as we consider moving it along today. We don't miss a beat and try to get it actually, the public hearing might be in 8 weeks perhaps, right? We get 6 weeks for the different committees, boards to get back to us if we do public hearing. We can have this in place so that we don't lose the whole summer season of disasters on the scenic overlay.
So Laura, I would just say, you and I had a very brief conversation. I know that in there is a very steep fine that I'm not sure is legal. But my recommendation to you and tonight is to move this forward. And I will check with attorneys to
Sure.
balance that out. But that's not a reason to hold this up.
Right.
It's picking a number that's legal.
Right, or as you and I talked before, putting the number in a resolution rather than in the law, so we can make a decision there. But the other thing is, people can still be looking at it just because it's going off to the Woodstock Planning Board.
And commenting back.
And people can be commenting back.
Yeah.
So it's on, and Melanie, thank you, Melanie, who I think is not on the call here, but thank you, Melanie, because the law is on the town website. If you look under TV meeting documents, if you look on the left-hand navigator on the town website, TV meeting documents, there's 2 versions of the law. One version is the red line, so you can actually see what changed. The other version is the red lines are all made, it's not red line, it's just all regular black and white, but it has the sections that make it a law. So the verbiage of the law is the same in both copies. But if you want to see what it did look like and what it does look like, the red line version. So those are on look on the town website, TV meeting documents on the left-hand navigator, pick that, scroll is towards the top of the list, once you get past the agenda.
Reggie, did you have any questions, concerns, issues? Shannon?
I just wanted to compliment the people who've worked on this. I know, Connor, we had a conversation about this, and we actually talked about this in 2021 before I was even on. I think that protecting the forest canopy in the entire Northeast is extremely important. And what we can do here in the municipality of Woodstock in 69 square miles here in any little way adds to that canopy. So thank you very much for doing that. And I'm ready to roll.
Okay, Elena?
Same
Same,
here.
okay, fine. So I do have that resolution a little further, and thank you, Connor, for both helping with this and coming out tonight to show your support. So you can urge your former colleagues now on the planning board to move expeditiously with it. I just want one quick note before, Laura, you asked about health, safety, radiation levels and whatnot. And Noah from Archtop, actually it's not Archtop, it's a different company representing Archtop, did respond back that it's akin to telephone lines, no radiation.
Oh, okay. And then somebody did put in the chat of the meeting, that could have been the same person referring to.
Yes, I believe it is. Yes, it is.
Yeah,
So
I
with
can answer
that-
any questions you guys have on that.
You know, whoa,
I
whoa.
thought it was the guy that said the chat. Go ahead.
Hi. I'm calling from Aerosmith Development. We're working with Archtop on this project. So if you guys have any other questions, feel free to ask.
Any other questions for now? Okay, so I'll continue to check with the county with regard to how they approached it and what the town can legally
Yeah, cool,
do.
cool, excellent.
Awesome.
All right.
Thank you,
then.
guys.
Be it resolved to accept minutes for meetings held on February 21st, 2023.
Second.
All in favor?
All right.
Aye. Be it resolved to authorize transfers per transfer sheet.
Second.
All in favor?
All right.
Aye. Be resolved to authorize payment of ordered vouchers in the amount of $280,451.28.
Second.
All in favor?
All right.
Aye. Be resolved to accept the resignation of Michelle Sullivan as full-time Woodstock dispatcher effective March 31st, 2023.
Second.
All in
Discussion.
favor?
Aye.
Yeah, discussion.
Oh,
Mhm.
sure.
I was really concerned about how many dispatchers we currently do have and what our numbers are. I know love to just, going forward, know where we stand on that.
So we have 3 full-timers at this point and 8 or 9 part-timers. Unfortunately, there is no list, but there is a test. I want to say the test was either this past Tuesday or the Tuesday coming. And so hopefully there'll be a list on which we can hire folks moving forward.
And what's the capacity? Do we have, should we have 4 or 5 or what's?
4 is optimally what we, full-timers is what we were aiming for.
Okay.
Favor?
Aye.
Aye. Be it resolved to accept the resignation of Robert Benjamin from the Woodstock Police Department effective February 23rd, 2023.
Second.
So Robert, he was a full-timer. He moved on to the Sheriff's Department a year or 2 ago, I believe, but stayed on part-time. But like most agencies, the Sheriff's Department is short on manpower, and so Robert's getting a lot of overtime there and not able to put much time in with Woodstock. So he's freeing up a space, hopefully, for another young individual. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And you got the other resolution? The one for the scenic overlay, you said you were about to.
I'm not done.
Oh, yay.
Be it resolved to accept the resignation of Carson D. Hoteling from the Woodstock Highway Department effective March 3rd, 2023.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Be it resolved to authorize the supervisor to finalize paperwork for the $100,000 SAM grant for the Como project, which we received through Michelle Hinchy, and be it further resolved to thank the senator for her support in this endeavor.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Be resolved to authorize the supervisor to forward the scenic overlay amendments to the Woodstock Planning Board and the Ulster County Planning Board for their review, and be it further resolved, supervisor will prepare a secret document on the proposed amendments.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, Melanie, do we have any public be heard?
We do not.
Okay, so with that, I am going to move
Well,
to,
I did want to just mention a little library update. If I may,
okay,
very quick.
yeah, okay.
Okay.
Thank you, Connor.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Connor.
Thank you.
The trees, thank you.
So I just want to mention that the library is getting ready to give tours of the new building. They're calling it a hard hat tour because the building renovation did not happen yet. You don't actually need a hard hat, it's safe. However, on Friday, starting the middle of April, on Fridays, people, individuals or groups can go to a tour of the new library building between 1 and 3. So just call Ivy at the Woodstock Library if you want to go see the new library and have a tour of it. So the tours are coming up. And they also are going to be starting fundraising because when they did the bond, they weren't bonding for everything they knew that they needed. They bonded for a big chunk, but they're going to fundraise for the remainder. And they are going to be selling pavers. So you can have kind of like the bricks in the community center having pavers. So pavers will be $250. I understand it. Last I knew, $250 per paver. So the library is moving forward and people can tour it and you can help fund if you choose, et cetera, et cetera.
Thank you. So since Laura brought that up, I think some of you or all of you may have received a email from Marcia regarding whether there's a necessity for a permit.
Oh, yeah, I left that. Oh, did I bring that piece of paper?
So in any event, if you do happen to see that email, so the library is going to do an event on a Saturday. What day did you say it was, Laura?
I thought that was
Yeah,
May. I'm pulling my calendar, sorry. And I didn't bring that specific piece of paper, but I could look it up. But
so in any event, what she had come in looking for was a mass gathering permit. Since this is going to be on the library property and not on town property or town road, they're not required to get a mass gathering permit. And
May
she was a
13th.
little confused because the library,
yeah, May 13th.
May 13th.
So May 13th from noon to 4 p.m., Dixon Avenue, a whole bunch of activities, music, children activities, and an opportunity to tour at that point as well.
So the library fair always comes in for a mass gathering permit. The difference there is that they they spill out onto the town road. And so, that's what we regulate. In any event, thank you for that update, Laura. I'm going to make a motion to move into executive session for the purpose of discussing police official.
Second,
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Alicia, I'm going to ask you to.
yeah.
Nice try.
So Lance, just to let you know, so starting April 14th, the tours